Hey guys, how's it going? It's Danconia here. Welcome back to the Overwatch League Roundup 2020 Team of Week 21. So again, and this seems to be a trend in June, it's been an incredibly tough week to do Team of the Week. There have been a lot of people popping off left, right and centre, and so there are a lot of people that could have got into this video and could have got into this 6-man team. So don't be too disheartened if I've left some people out that you thought were really good. I honestly do think we're seeing a crazy amount of skill right now, and something we've seen in recent months as well is the return to the pop-off DPS, which we haven't seen in a long time, considering we, going back before GOATs, when we, in the inaugural season, we saw a lot of DPS popping off and carrying games, and we're seeing it again now. It's been a long time coming, hasn't it? But we are going to start off in this Team of the Week with looking at our main support role, our Lucio, or in this case, it's a Brigitte, because Brigitte is back, and when Brigitte is around, yeah, everyone plays Brigitte, because she's too good, isn't she? Anyway, some teams have moved to putting specialists back on the Brigitte, simply because they don't want to run a Lucio, they don't want to run anything else most of the time. Some teams have been still trying to run the Zen Baptiste, which is fine, but that means this can't work in that instance. But one honourable mention I will give is to Haxel. Haxel played, well, in fact, actually, he played pretty much the whole match, if not the whole match, for NYXL against Guangzhou Charge. But he played on the first two maps in the support slot. He went back to his Brigitte that we saw him on with Runaway and Vancouver when we were in GOATs. And Haxel was one of the best, if not the best, Brigittes in the world. He was phenomenal. And what was demonstrated in these two maps were the fact that he's not lost anything. He is still absolutely fantastic on that role. NYXL did end up switching him back to the DPS where he played the Genji and also did very well, but I wanted to give him an honourable mention here. He was really good despite NYXL losing one map and winning one map with him in that Brig role. It wasn't really down to him that they lost it. So I think that's an incredible tool that NYXL have got, especially going into the Summer Showdown. But he doesn't get the spot because I am going to give it to Li Shaegon of the Shanghai Dragons. So Shanghai had two matches this week against Seoul and against Hangzhou. They were by no means easy matches, but they managed to 3-1 Seoul Dynasty and 3-0 Hangzhou Spark, which is brilliant from the Shanghai Dragons. They really are hitting the ground running now. Whenever you see you've got to take on the Shanghai Dragons, you tremble in fear because you don't know whether you're going to be able to get past them or not. Most likely you aren't. So our reigning Melee champions go into the Summer Showdown as #1 seed, which they didn't in May, by the way. And I think this is they've got an incredible support line, right? Whether it be Izayaki, we've seen Luffy at times, but Li Shaegon is fantastic. And it's not just because he's got great skill, whether he's playing the Lucio or whether he's playing the Brig or whatever he's playing. It's his spatial awareness and game awareness is phenomenal. And that's what I really want to pick out here. And this is why I put Li Shaegon in the spot, because his awareness shut down stalls on points and stuff like that, and it allowed Shanghai to get the comprehensive victories that they've got. And I honestly think this Shanghai team looks a bit shaky without Li Shaegon in the roster. So I don't want to say they rely on Li Shaegon, but remember they went 3-2 against Chengdu, only just getting that win last week, and they lost both maps where Li Shaegon didn't feature, which is very interesting. I think Li Shaegon is very crucial to this Shanghai Dragons lineup, and I don't think they would have had it quite as good this week without Li Shaegon in the lineup. I think he had a fantastic week. His game awareness could be one of the best, if not the best in the league. He really backs up this Shanghai Dragons team well. And now that they've got a fantastic tank line in Void and Fearless, and of course they've got fantastic DPS, whatever they're running, they look unstoppable. They really, really do. So that's why Li Shaegon gets this spot. But alongside him in that flex support is an interesting one, because last week was it Alarm, Twilight? One of the two, because we saw a Zen Bap. So this week I want to give an honourable mention to Kariv. And I know Toronto lost 3-0 to Dallas. It's not a great look, but the player that always stands out for the Toronto Defiant is Kariv. Every single time it's him. He is so good, and I feel sorry for him being on a roster that just can't get wins and can't be higher up in the league. I think Kariv could be a player that deserves a better team than where he's at, and it's such a shame to see him near the bottom of the league, because we say countless times that, wow, Kariv is doing so well, but oh, he's on the Toronto Defiant, he's losing. That's really unfortunate. So I want to give him an honorable mention, but I'm actually going to give it, and people are probably not going to like this, but I'm going to give it to Hailey of the London Spitfire. So the reason I'm going to give this to Hailey is because I think he's had the best week we've seen him have in the Overwatch League. London got a massively surprising result against the Hangzhou Spark. And we were saying London were improving last week, but to 3-0 the Hangzhou Spark is no mean feat. Whether that's because Hangzhou Spark didn't prepare for London as well as they should have because they had the Shanghai game, which they also lost by the same scoreline. It's been a terrible week for the Hangzhou Spark. But I think I said it in the results video that two players stood out for me this week for the Spitfire, Jihan and Hailey. Just because the Spitfire got a little bit more aggressive, made good on their advantages a bit more. And that was thanks to these two players. Because Jihan can't press those advantages without a fantastic backline behind him, keeping him up and keeping him healthy. And Hailey was doing this brilliantly this week. Absolutely fantastically. Not only that, he was contributing with the damage as well under Batiste, because we mostly saw Hailey on Batiste. So I was really, really impressed with Hailey this week. And again, there are other names you could have put in here. But I was really impressed about... I don't think London would have done as well without Hailey in this roster. And I think Hailey also offers that little bit of experience that no one else on the Spitfire has at the Overwatch League level. We know that Hailey used to be at the Seoul Dynasty last season. So, yeah, I'm going to give it to Hailey. And if Hailey and Jihan can keep on playing like this, London Spitfire really do have a bright future. But we're moving on to the tanks now, and the off-tank. The off-tank is bonkers this week. It's absolutely stacked. This has been the most stacked week for the off-tank role this year. Everyone has been popping off. Really, they really have, apart from some teams that haven't won this weekend. But we even saw good stuff from Janu at the Washington Justice, especially in the match against Boston, the seeding match, not the seeding match, the qualification match for the Summer Showdown. So that's promising as well. I've got countless names on this list. Michelle for the Seoul Dynasty had a really good week. Nice to see him back on the Dynasty roster. Gargoyle, as ever, for the Florida Mayhem. Fantastic off-tank. One of the best off-tanks in NA right now, and I don't think anyone can really disagree with that. Space was really good. Void, as ever, really consistent for the Shanghai Dragons, really good. Choi Hyobin of the San Francisco Shock. Again, San Francisco Shock getting a fantastic win this week. Most notably, I remember Choi Hyobin turning a 2v6 fight against the Philadelphia Fusion, getting 4 kills, and the Shock winning the fight. That's bonkers against a team of Fusion's caliber. So he's just crazy. Note has probably had the best week he has had for the Dallas Fuel this year. Note was really, really good against Toronto Defiant, and I wanted to point that out as well. But I cannot give it to anyone else but Krong of the Guangzhou Charge. Krong is having a season. Let's put it that way. He's having a massive season for the Guangzhou Charge. I honestly think he's their best player. Quite by a margin at the moment. I mean, there's no Nero for the Charge at the moment, so we have to take that into account. But Krong, he can put this Charge team on his back sometimes. And remember, this Charge team goes 3-2 a lot of times against a lot of teams. We saw that with the NYXL this week. And without Krong, I don't think they get these 3-2s. I think Krong is what's making this Guangzhou Charge team so darn good and so darn clutch right now. He has clutched so many times for the Charge when they've needed it. And it's bonkers to see it from an off-tank. It is bonkers, especially when we're seeing so much DPS pop off at the moment. Krong got best player in both of Guangzhou Charge's matches this week against Chengdu and New York. Both. And I had been monitoring the Player of the Match awards for a while now, and they've been going to a lot of DPS. A lot of DPS. DPS dominate it. But you look at this week, it's actually majority off-tanks that get the awards. It's bonkers how good the off-tanks have been in week 21. But Krong is at the absolute top. Absolute top. He is bonkers. Absolutely crazy right now. He's competing right at the top of the best off-tanks in the league right now. And I can't wait to see what he does going forward. Guangzhou Charge. He's bonkers. He's just bonkers. He really, really is. He was out playing Hotbar. He was out playing Hotbar. That's without a doubt. And Hotbar's been in Team of the Week before. So, yeah, this is bonkers. Krong, it can't be anyone else but Krong. But main tank. This was not as easy. Not many people really, really stood out in the main tank role this week. Everyone was very consistent and good, but no one was, oh my god, that is the main tank. That is the main tank. Best main tank of the week, without a doubt. No one's kind of caught the eye like that. I've got a few names. Gesture did very well for the Seoul Dynasty. Obviously, I've mentioned Jihoon of the London Spitfire, who is just, you know, he changed the way London played ever so slightly, got them a little bit more aggressive and allowed them to push advantages, which was great. Shredlock of the Vancouver Titans is a name we haven't come across in Team of the Week before, but I want to give him an honourable mention. He was good this week as Vancouver Titans got another 3-0 win, although they did lose 3-0 to the Atlanta Reign. But Baby Bay will be coming up in a minute as well as an honourable mention. But yeah, Shredlock had probably the best week he's had in the league so far, so that was good from him. But in the end, I have given it to Smurf of the San Francisco Shock. I think the San Francisco Shock's coordination in team play was fantastic against the Philadelphia Fusion, and it's what made them look so much better than the Fusion, in my opinion. I think the Fusion can match the San Francisco Shock for individual talent and individual skill, but when it comes to those teams going head to head, coordination is very, very, very much in the Shock's favour. And I've seen a lot of people saying, yes, but the Philadelphia Fusion messed around with their roster, blah, 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 blah. Well, if you're going to play Zen Batiste, you're going to want Boombox. You're not going to want Funny Astro. So you're going to have Boombox and Alarm. Yeah, and they kind of swapped it over. Sometimes Boombox was playing Batiste and Alarm was playing Zen. Sometimes the other way around. It's a difficult one. I would probably have Alarm playing the Batiste and Boombox playing Zen. Again, I'm getting off on a tangent here. I don't know why I've ended up against a take-on about the Fusion, but going back to Smurf, Smurf was really good. He got more value in the end than Sado did for the Philadelphia Fusion, who hasn't featured in Team of the Week for a long time now, Sado, going back to weeks 2 and 3. And yeah, he seemed like the tank that was getting the most value this week, but there have been a lot of good tanks going around, and a lot of them have been very, very consistent, so I don't want to put anyone else down. Again, Fearless had a decent week as well. But Fearless has featured a lot recently, I'm not going to lie. But yeah, Smurf is going to be my main tank, and then we come to our 2 DPS. So, the interesting thing about the DPS at the moment is the roles are changing, because traditionally we talk about hit scan and projectile DPS, but the lines have blurred a lot recently, with some teams wanting double hit scan, some teams even wanting double projectile, some teams wanting double flanker. It's become a very versatile, and it needs a player that can be very versatile in turn. So we've seen a lot of players that have been able to not only play the Genji, the Echo, the Doomfist, but also play the Tracer, the hit scan, and we've seen, you know, Tracer Widow comps, Tracer Ashe comps, and things like that. So it's incredibly valuable to have a DPS that can flex. But there are a ton of mentions here. So we're going to start off with a more projectile-y role, even though I've just ruled that out. So Doha, he's back to having a great week for the Dallas Fuel against Toronto Defiant. Again, I do worry that it's taken into account the quality of opponent. That's what I do worry about this. But he had a really good week. Prophet had one of the best weeks we've seen him have for a long while. It's good to see Prophet getting back to better ways, I would say. Not winning ways, better ways is what we'll say. Kevster, again, nice to see him hitting the ground now for the Los Angeles Gladiators, and I'm glad to see him having a really decent week, because I think he's a really good player and he will get better as time goes on. Edison of the Atlanta Reign, again, being really flexible, really good week, tore the Vancouver Titans apart. Striker of the San Francisco Shock, as good as ever. It's great to see Striker back on his comfort picker Tracer, and he's been really good. Tuba of the Washington Justice, I want to give a mention, because his Genji was godlike. I'm not going to lie, at times he was getting really great value out of that Genji. Even though, well, they got one map off the Gladiators, it was a 3-1 in the end, and they ended up beating the Boston Uprising 3-1 in a qualification match. So, yeah, it's been a decent improvement week for the Washington Justice, and Tuba has been a very major part of that. Also, want to mention Shockwave. Shockwave of the Vancouver Titans, again, it seems like he is carrying the Titans at times in some fights. And this can be said for a lot of DPS right now in the league. They seem to be able to carry teams in fights sometimes, which is crazy. We haven't seen DPS doing this for a long time, but Shockwave is a massive prime example of this. But it's not just always the DPS, because DPS have to have space created for them a lot of the time. So it can be down to the tank line as well, and that's why I gave Shredlock an honourable mention, and KSA was also very good for the Vancouver Titans this week. But I'm going to give it to Sparkle. Sparkle's back. So first week Sparkle came back to the league, or first week that Sparkle took part in the league, he was really darn good, and we were like, damn, Sparkle's here, everyone. And then in week 20 he was not very good, and everyone was like, well, he was overhyped, wasn't he? But something we have to remember is this was against the San Francisco Shock. And the San Francisco Shock are the big boys of NA, aren't they? Let's be honest. They are very difficult to handle. But this week we had an incredible test because it was against Los Angeles Valiant. It was against Shaxx and KSP. So we know that Shaxx and KSP are fantastic. They even outdid Yaki and BQB against the Florida Mayhem last week. So we know how good the Valiant's DPS line is. And they were going up against XZ and Sparkle, and on Junkertown it's XZ and Zune. So this was a super duper interesting one. And Sparkle was getting value once again. It wasn't the dead ass Sparkle that we saw last week that was getting no value and was getting shut down at every turn. This was Sparkle getting value, getting big blades, getting what he needs to get done, and honestly winning team fights for the Paris Eternal at times. And this is why I put him back in here. Because I think without Sparkle, I think this would have been a very close match, maybe a win for the Valiant. And it's testament to the Paris Eternal shutting down KSP and Shaxx to a certain extent. And that comes from both Sparkle and XZ as well, because he had a really good week, but he's not going to be my other pick, by the way. But yeah, I'm going to give it to Sparkle. I hope Sparkle can continue this sort of form though, because he has incredible pedigree coming into the league, and I hope he can continue this going forward. But the last spot, the hit scan spot, again, I said I'd mention Baby Bay. I'm mentioning Baby Bay. Baby Bay had a good week for the Atlanta Reign against the Vancouver Titans. Yaki, again, really good week for the Florida Mayhem. Don't think they would have beaten the Houston Outlaws without Yaki. So, yeah, a good week for him. Fitz of the Soul Dynasty, again, not a great week for him. And obviously, I mentioned just now, we saw XE on the Paris Eternal, who again had a really good week. But I want to give this to Ans of the San Francisco Shock. So, Ans, he really popped off in the first map, the Ilios map for San Francisco Shock against the Fusion. And once again, Ans' Widow popped off. But he wasn't just hitting headshots on the tanks or some supports. Yes, he was hitting headshots consistently on Ilios anyway, on Carpe's Tracer. Which is probably one of the hardest shots to hit in the entire game as Widowmaker. So that's really good. But that was Ilios, and that was a bit of a unique case. But throughout the entire series, Ans was very, very consistent. He was on the Ashe as well, not just the Widowmaker. And I think Ans, I had a lot of questions as to why they picked up Ans coming into the season, but he's proved everyone wrong. He's played a lot for the San Francisco Shock this season, and he's looked very, very, very good. And I think he deserves this spot. There's a lot of good hit scan, especially long range hit scan DPS in the league at the moment. So there are a bunch of other people you could have had in here. XZ, Fitz, Baby Bay, BQB. There is a bunch of people, maybe not BQB this week, but yeah, there's a bunch of people you could have had here. So yeah, Lip, there's another one. It's stacked at the moment. A lot of high quality in the league right now. And considering we're on online play, that's massive. They're not even on LAN right now. So I wonder whether it might be players getting back into the old comfort of playing in these online tournaments, which used to be the thing in Overwatch, obviously. So yeah, this is super interesting, and it's great to see so many people popping off, so many teams coming good. Obviously, next week we go into the Summer Showdown, where we will see who's the best in NA and APAC. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes out the same as it did last time, but you know, we'll see. The previews for next week will be divided up into APAC and NA, so we can take a little bit more of a look into them, do predictions and stuff like that. And then Team of the Week, if I can do it, which I didn't last time, but that was due to health issues, but if I do end up doing Team of the Week, then I might well divide that up as well and do an APAC Team of the Week and an NA Team of the Week, which would be super interesting. I know some people I think have asked for that before, and I might start doing it for these tournaments to make it a little bit more interesting, have something a little bit different, should we say. But I'm going to leave it here for this one. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you'd like to give a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.